All right, let's just dive right into it. If you've ever watched a viral political breakdown and wondered how it gets your heart racing so fast, well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're taking a really close look at the mechanics of modern independent media in this explainer. We're going straight to the source material from a recent, highly charged broadcast to figure out exactly how commentators build such a compelling, urgent message. Now, to be clear, we absolutely aren't here to take sides or debate the politics today. We're just here to objectively dissect the anatomy of the narrative itself. I mean, it literally sounds like the setup to a wild political thriller, doesn't it? But this is exactly the kind of rapid-fire association that modern political narratives use to keep you completely glued to the screen. By examining the source directly, we can see how the host structures these seemingly wild, totally unrelated claims to build one massive argument. The technique at play here is actually something called the fire hose method. That's where you present a massive volume of information super quickly, but it all points back to one central thesis.
So to make sense of all this rapid-fire commentary, we've organized the source material into 5 key thematic pillars. Number 1, Biden's rumored political ambitions. Number 2, homelessness funding and accountability. Number 3, healthcare fraud allegations. Number 4, Vance's push for oversight. And finally, number 5, debating Trump's impeachment.
Okay, let's start with Section 1, Biden's rumored political ambitions. The broadcast kicks its narrative off by zeroing right in on alleged intra-party conflicts involving Hunter Biden. Right out of the gate, the commentator doesn't start with dry policy, right? They start with a highly recognizable, controversial figure to instantly grab your attention. The source points to claims that Hunter Biden actually wants to run as Gavin Newsom's VP. And the host uses this specific quote to portray an alleged desire to expose a corrupt Democratic financial ecosystem. The source material quotes claims that Hunter wants to stick it to the Democrats and settle scores in D.C. The absolute brilliance of this narrative choice is that it uses a figure traditionally associated with the Democratic Party to launch an attack against that very same party's establishment. So what's the crucial takeaway here? It's how the host uses these political rumors to immediately hook the audience and establish a central theme of untrustworthy political elites. The host highlights claims that Hunter wants nothing to do with Kamala Harris, warning that party elites are simply enriching themselves. The commentator even goes so far as to compare this disruptive attitude to Donald Trump's energy. They frame it as a kind of blind violence against the political establishment that the host argues America desperately needs. It just perfectly sets the stage for the financial allegations that are about to follow. All right, moving right along to Section 2, homelessness funding and accountability. Let's see how the narrative builds here, because it shifts focus from political rumors to concrete allegations of massive financial mismanagement in California. It goes from the abstract idea of a corrupt ecosystem to hard dollar and cent allegations. The broadcast brings up an audit of a Los Angeles homelessness program, setting up a massive contrast. $50 million distributed, but, and here's the kicker, only $13 million actually accounted for. This brilliantly illustrates how numerical contrasts are used to spark instant outrage. When you hear that out of $50 million, only a fraction can be verified, it immediately reinforces that earlier theme of elites enriching themselves at the public's expense.
Now think about the sheer scale of this number, $24 billion, with a B. The host claims this astounding amount was spent statewide over 5 years, while the crisis literally only worsened. By throwing out a number with that many zeros, the commentator elevates the issue from a local bureaucratic failure to a catastrophic systemic grift. The source material emphasizes that despite this massive injection of capital, the homelessness issue visually hasn't improved at all, perfectly setting up the argument that the money is being purposefully diverted. But the commentator doesn't just stop at big numbers. They use specific examples to paint a picture of a total gravy train fueled by unchecked taxpayer dollars. Drawing on quotes from a U.S. attorney, the host highlights that over $100 million in fraud has already been charged. We're talking allegations of funds meant to house people instead being used to buy luxury mansions in Westwood and vacation homes in Greece. And even when the source acknowledges that local leaders like Mayor Karen Bass claim a zero-tolerance policy for mismanagement, the host spins it, framing this as mere political distancing that's only happening because they got caught. It is a tight, completely impenetrable narrative loop. Which brings us to Section 3, healthcare fraud allegations. Bridging the gap from California over to Ohio, the source continues its theme of exploited federal funds, but this time taking aim at Medicaid. This geographic pivot is absolutely vital for the narrative. It tells the viewer, hey, this isn't just a California problem, it's an everywhere problem. 94. Just sit with that number for a second. To really hammer home this idea of zero oversight, the broadcast pulls from a congressional hearing that revealed 94 fake home healthcare businesses. And get this, they were all operating out of one single address. The host uses this specific testimony to highlight the sheer audacity of the alleged fraud, asking how state employees could possibly miss nearly 100 shell companies sharing the exact same front door.
This is where the story gets really wild. It brilliantly illustrates the absurdity claimed by the host. We see a rapid, step-by-step Medicaid scam allegedly pulled off by, of all things, a janitor. According to the source, this individual noticed nobody was checking the paperwork, renamed her business, and within just a few months was drawing down $650,000 in a single month. And then, she just fled the country with millions. This anecdote acts as the emotional anchor for the entire section. It takes the abstract concept of Medicaid fraud and makes it deeply personal and intensely frustrating for any average taxpayer watching.
Now let's look at Section 4, Vance's push for oversight. So, having established this narrative of widespread, totally unchecked fraud, the broadcast introduces the political figures it positions as the ultimate solution. Because a good narrative doesn't just present a massive problem, right? It offers a hero to fix it. The host uses a tax day monologue from JD Vance to contrast the alleged fraudsters with leaders demanding real accountability for hardworking Americans' money. The source material leans heavily on Vance's stated commitment to ensuring funds actually reach low-income families and the military, rather than falling into the hands of criminals. This positions the political figures the host supports not just as policymakers, but as the true protectors of the public trust. The underlying argument being made here is that this kind of theft happens because of systemic apathy. Nobody cares because it's federal money. The commentator repeatedly drives home the idea that state administrators and Washington elites just look the other way simply because the money isn't coming directly out of their own pockets. It completely reinforces the core message we saw earlier. The establishment is a self-enriching ecosystem, and it requires outside forces to disrupt it. And that leads into our final pillar, Section 5, debating Trump's impeachment. In its final thematic pivot, the source material shifts directly from financial oversight into partisan political clashes on cable news. Just as the viewer is totally fired up about stolen taxpayer funds, the host redirects all that energy straight toward the upcoming election cycle. They show this really jarring, seconds-apart juxtaposition from a CNN panel to claim that political figures are actively hiding their true hostile agendas. The host highlights a clip where a panelist vehemently denies that anyone is running on an impeachment platform, only for another panelist to interject literally seconds later, saying she absolutely thinks the president should be impeached. For the host, this clip is the ultimate proof of concept. It's presented as undeniable, on-camera evidence of the political deception he's been warning about throughout the entire broadcast. This is where the commentator ties the whole shebang together. From Biden to the janitor to CNN, it all converges into a really pressing call to action for his audience. He warns of a supposed secret plan to impeach Donald Trump on January 21st, using the momentum of the entire preceding narrative to urge his viewers to get out and vote. By the end of the broadcast, the homelessness crisis in LA, the Medicaid fraud in Ohio, and the cable news bickering are no longer separate events. They're presented as symptoms of the exact same disease, requiring immediate action at the ballot box. So, what does this all mean for us? Ultimately, by objectively breaking down the source material like we just did, we can clearly see how independent media constructs highly effective narratives that define the modern political landscape. The host didn't need to write a complex policy paper, they just needed to connect the dots in a way that felt incredibly urgent, emotionally charged, and highly structured. Whether you agree with the politics or not, understanding the mechanics of how these messages are built is absolutely crucial for navigating today's media environment. So I leave you with this to consider. When you're presented with a fire hose of information designed to make you angry, are you reacting to the facts themselves or to the masterful way the storyteller has strung them all together? Definitely think about that the next time you're scrolling through your feed.